What I'm going to be talking about today is the future of work in terms of technology. We've got chatbots who are helping us with recruitment and HR queries, paying contractors in cryptocurrencies, using robots to do all sorts of work, including recruitment. Some would say the future of work is here already. We're living in this nirvana. But I'd argue that we're not. We've got a lot of work to do. Did you know that 50% of our Fortune 500 companies disappeared in the last 10 years? You know, how many are still going to be standing in the next 10 years? And as Herminia Ibarra said yesterday, what got us here might not be what gets us there in the future. I think we need to have a relook at how we work, our organizations, and our organizational structures. But before we get into this, I'd like you just to sit back as I take you into a future scenario. Make yourselves comfortable. This is Jo. She's being taken to work in her bug car, her Beamer, Uber, Google, driverless car. She's talking to Sirius, who's her AI coach. I notice you got less alpha rhythm sleep last night. When you get to the office, maybe you should have some breakfast to increase your energy levels. You're meeting the new client exec. She seems a little skeptical at first, but maybe ask her open questions and smile so she might warm up. And we've got Colin, who actually works in the category team. His social networking patterns are different. There's a change in them. Maybe you should go and check in with him while you're there. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is outrageous, this future scenario, for many reasons. Number one, we don't even capture that data around our biometrics, personality, location, performance. Two, even if we did, do we have robust predictive models about behavior to make them that reliable? And three, would Jo allow her employer to have such information? If you could have this automated AI coach tomorrow, would you sign up for your workforce, for your employees? But it does bring up some ethical questions. We can see the benefits of it. You know, if an employee gets a whiff of dystopia or Big Brother, then you lose. You know, you won't attract employees to your company. It'll be a real problem. I'll give you an example of that. The Daily Telegraph, a big broadsheet newspaper in London, put sensors under the desks of journalists, and there was an outrage. Now, the lesson learned there is always ask your employees for permission, especially if they're journalists. They made a massive big hoo-ha about that. There's major changes in demographics and the mega trends that impact all of our HR work, and the changes in demographics are one of them. Babies born today in Western Europe are going to live to more than 100. You know, the working age is going up to 67, 68, creeping along slowly. So the idea of going to university when you're 20 for 3 years and then working for 50 years seems ridiculous. We need to rethink all of this. So what can we do as HR professionals? Well, work out what our workforce needs are, absolutely. Look ahead, and also look at the employee experience that Christoph mentioned through the lens of these different populations in our workforce. I think that's one thing we can do with demographics. Freelancers, a number of people have mentioned the rise of the gig economy, independent workers, however we categorize them. Harvard Business Review reckons there'll be 1.3 billion virtual workers in the future. And I lose track, but here's 39 million you could add to your global talent pool on two of the popular platforms at the moment. The thing is, the gig economy is here to stay. We need to include them as part of our workforce, and the employee experience comes in here too. We can't have these disparate groups of workers in our organization without tracking them, without looking at productivity, without looking at well-being. We need to bring them all into the same pot, so to speak. So this does give some challenges to HR in terms of HR's role. When we've got some work to do, we move from full-time employee, contractor, third party. Do we automate it? Do we use bots? Do we use robots? The whole sourcing of work becomes much broader than it's been over the last 10 or 20 years. And I'm going to touch on blockchain a little bit during this presentation. Meaningful work is a subject close to my heart. It's a shocking statistic by YouGov that 37% of British workers think their jobs are meaningless. Now, this really is shocking. I think the research is replicated in other countries. And Professor Katie Bailey at the University of Sussex did some research on this. What makes work meaningful? And the psychologists in the room will be able to answer this. But meaningful work is intensely personal. But there are a few things that can destroy employees having meaningful work. The 7 deadly sins of meaningful work: disconnect people from values, take people for granted, give people pointless work, treat people unfairly, disempower people, isolate people, and put people at risks. So one of the challenges, I think, for HR is to design work that is more meaningful. So what we need, I think, is reinvention. We need to relook at things. Take your inspiration from wherever. I took a bit of mine from David Bowie, who's performing in Brussels in the 70s. You'll take inspiration from other places, but that is one thing we need to do. But robotic process automation is being used in HR. Transactional work, repetitive work. These robots are on the continuum of algorithms. They can be very, very useful. They're used in recruitment. There's a number of companies that are using robots in recruitment. What they do is you choose the job boards they should look at with certain criteria. They pick out some candidates, but then they go and ring them up, and they interview them. They ask them an agreed question and record the responses, either on video or voice. And then they give the screened candidates back to the recruiter. The recruiter's reaction to this is pretty positive. They like it. It takes out a lot of the work that they don't really enjoy. The candidates quite like it because, it's using new technology. It doesn't faze them at all, particularly younger candidates. So robotic process automation is working, but we do need to be careful when we're talking to employees about how this is positioned. Anthropomorphism, putting human features onto technology, isn't really a healthy thing. This is CoachBot, which is the first digital team coaching bot. And what it does is works with a team. You start off with a chatty interface, and it starts to ask questions around team objectives, clarity, purpose, team dynamics, that kind of thing. It points the team members to resources that are useful. And the aim of it isn't to get people on their phone tapping away to a chatbot. The aim is to get the team themselves talking offline about the challenges of teamwork. So that's called CoachBot, produced by Sabre in London. And if you think about this and the promise of artificial intelligence, what we can do, maybe a coach, a life coach or whatever, costs €100 an hour, say, for example. These tools are about €100 per year for unlimited use. Now, it's not going to be the same or as beneficial as having a one-on-one relationship, but let's say it's 20, 30, 40% of the value. This technology starts to become available to everyone in the world who works in teams gradually. It's probably billions of people. So the potential for using artificial intelligence is amazing. And I've been doing some research with Don Tapscott's Blockchain Research Institute, looking at the potential of blockchain in the HR space. So when you look at blockchain, a decentralized database, the ability to transact digital assets on a peer-to-peer basis without a middleman, immutable, a digital audit trail that can't be deleted, digital smart contracts between two people that can be agreed and confirmed, and there's a record of it. Already being used in many cases where we need to have a record. Birth certificates in Illinois are now going onto a blockchain. So gradually, we're going to have people who are going to have this technology underpinning their certificates, their identity. It might even take a generation before everyone's onto it. So there are some uses at the moment. And there are some benefits in HR. So where do we have a situation where it'd be useful to have a digital audit trail? Where do we have a situation where we have middlemen taking out a percentage of the value of the contracts? Well, in hiring, whether it's people doing graphic design on Upwork or contractors. What about people who are giving false qualifications? So there's lots of opportunities. Health and safety certification could all be put on a blockchain. And the idea is that you could have a personal block, really, with our information. So our ID confirmed. If we have a university degree, that's confirmed by the university. Clunk, click, it's approved. Your work history, you've worked for 5 years for Coca-Cola. Clunk, click, it's approved. So it becomes verified. So another big challenge for the background check industry, because if you manage your own identity, you choose what you share with employers, it becomes much more robust potentially. And my work with the Tapscots has said, well, what happens to organizations when this happens? Well, more people will move into the gig economy. Could be fairer. We could have design principles such as they're owned by the freelancers and independent workers, rather than somebody taking the 20% chunk. We could really redesign how organizations work. And the community in blockchain is a mixture of political anarchists and techies. It's quite interesting. But very quickly, we're getting business professionals like yourself with deep expertise in areas such as HR and work and management. And I think it's got great, great potential. Now, I've talked a little bit about the mega trends impacting all our work, some organizational problems that we need to fix if we're going to create brilliant organizations in the future. How are we actually going to do that? One area I think is really rich is people analytics. It's actually using our data to build predictive models around behavior for our organizations, assessing which organization structures work, whether that's agile or self-organized teams or whatever. So our organizations don't really look like this, do they? With these horrible org charts showing the hierarchies. And Herminia Ibarra talked about, are you a hub or are you a bridge in your own personal networks? That got me thinking about my own personal network, my role in it, and where I want it to be. It's very interesting. But a new technique, a new trend, is around organizational network analysis. This starts to allow us to look at not only our own networking, but that of our teams in workers, visualizing relationships in the work setting. I'll give you an example. This is from a pharma company in Asia, but they looked at cohesion in teams using network analysis and found some differences between teams. So when you start to look at this and throw in all the other data points you can get in people analytics to solve problems like attrition, productivity, it's just another data point that is quite interesting to see how our organizations actually relate to each other. So if a big trend is teams, then O&A probably has a part to play in our work and our toolbox of the future. And to the question of how we're going to get ourselves out of this, how we're going to assess what really works, well, we can't just keep choosing shiny new tools that Andy Spence shows you at conferences. We actually need to do our evidence-based management. We need to get back to science. What are the questions, what are the challenges that we need to solve? And evidence-based management just says we need to critically assess a broad range of evidence sources. Typically, in any business or even in our personal lives, when we go to the doctor, and we make our decisions based on maybe one expert health practitioner. But there are other sources to look at. There's the scientific literature. There are other experts and groups. In a business, they're your stakeholders, your customers. So there's other sources of information we can look at. Evidence-based management isn't rocket science. Ultimately, you as business leaders will need to make the decisions yourselves. But this covers a broader base, and I do recommend it for HR. I'm a professional member of the Center for Evidence-Based Management based in Amsterdam, and their website has a lot of free and useful resources that I recommend. There's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. So when we're looking at our businesses, our HR functions, hey, with these chatbots or cloud technology, we can do it faster and cheaper. Might not be the right answer. We need to rethink We need to rethink our business models, how we've done HR, look at the tools available, look at where our business is going, and take Drucker's advice. Don't just make things go quicker and faster. Where does this leave HR? Well, I think the HR function, if we're at this conference in 5 to 10 years' time, there'll be a slightly different skill sets involved. We've got the behavioral scientists, the technologists, managers will be managing their teams with these decision-making tools to help them. They might have a serious AI chatbot, So where does that leave HR? Well, workforce technology champions, behavioral scientists, there's compliance, there's the procurement of work generally. There's a lot of ways it could go. So where do we go from here? I think that we need to challenge existing frameworks, assumptions, and ways of working, evolve our strategy and business models, have a broad work strategy and plan, use insights from behavioral science, and basically adopt better management and org structures. And what can we do now? Well, embrace the new technology. 5 years ago, if you wanted to try some technology that was being presented at a conference, you needed to go and get pretty much board approval for your multi-million-pound business case. Now you can try out these bots on a per employee per month basis. No harm done. Experiment, try them, see if they work. They might not, but if they do, there's an option for you. Keep up to date with the latest trends, like coming to this conference is one of those. Work out what really drives you at work and do something you really love. It's feeding on the presentations from yesterday from the 2 professors in the keynotes. Ask what skills will be useful in the future. And what is your appetite to develop these skills? Do you want to be a handler of Harry? Do you want to design Harry? Do you want to do something completely different? Okay, thank you very much for listening.